Well, welcome. I am here, very excited to be here with Leah Rosenbaum. She graduated from CTI just a few months ago, and she went through the mentor coaching experience, and she's about to go into CPEC. So I had the pleasure of getting to coach her while we were in the mentor coaching experience. And as a part of that, she actually coached me. She's very good. So I just wanted to talk to Leah for a moment, give you a chance to hear from her, because I think it's really great when we're able to hear from other coaches who are on this journey. So Leah, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Valerie. It's a pleasure to be here. And I loved coaching you. And I want to know how your meetings with yourself are going.
My meetings with myself are going very well. I thought that was a really great homework assignment. You know, for someone like me who's always giving other people homework, it's fun to get homework, especially from people going through going through the CaPP Institute's programs. I love your background, first of all. You know, we're in this world right now where we're doing so much of this virtual talking, and I love how bright it is, but you are in New York City, right?
I am, yeah, on the Upper East Side of Manhattan.
So what made you go through CTI?
Yeah, so, it goes back to really my interest in coaching. Just generally, I had thought about coaching for a very long time. I remember reading an article about a coach, and I don't remember if she called herself a coach or had some other sort of, more nuanced name for what she did in the New York Times years ago. And it really resonated. And I was like, I think that's the thing that I'm meant to do.
Yeah.
But I wasn't really sure. I had a lot of hesitations. And I think the idea of helping people get unstuck is very intimidating, especially, thinking, well, I don't have all the answers. So how could I help someone find the answers? And so I just sort of put it aside. And then at the beginning of this year, when the pandemic was really beginning here in the US, I found online some postings by people I know from various parts of my lives saying that they were becoming coaches. And it was like this light bulb moment of like, wait a minute, I want to do that too. And if they can do that, well, then I can do that.
Yeah.
And so I started looking around and I came across the CaPP Institute and I found
Another
CTI.
dad, right?
And it just, it really resonated. And I was like, well, let me just do CTI. It's 3 days. If I hate it, I never have to do it again. And if I love it, then it starts me on this whole journey.
Yeah, yeah. You know, when I was developing the program way back in 2009, that was my exact thought. Like, so many of us, myself included, get these little inklings like, oh, I might like to do that. And it might be years before we go ahead and take the plunge, but it's scary to take a huge step, like commit to a really long program when we haven't done it at all. So my thinking when I first created it was, let me create something that gives you a set of tools, but it's also enough to get your feet wet so you can discover if you want to go any further. So you went through CTI and you pretty much immediately decided you wanted to take it a step further. Tell me how you came to that decision.
Yeah, well, it's funny. You and Kim and LaFern tell us, and it's good advice. Don't have your phones out. Don't have any distractions. And I think about 20 minutes into the first day of it, I snuck my phone out of the drawer and I was typing to this woman who had given me some advice about, the CaPP Institute and CTI. She had gone through it. And I just sent her a message on Instagram and I said, sneaking my phone because I found my thing and I found my people. I put it back in the drawer. I since found out that she told, I think it was Kim that she told. And so I kind of.
She told on you?
But in a very nice way. I'm not mad about it. But I remember I came across that like months later on Instagram. It wasn't that long ago. And I was like, oh gosh. But there was just right away this feeling of, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I hoped it would be. And I feel so myself when I'm doing this. And so I remember, partway through, because I hadn't signed up for CPEC yet, of course, or even the MC. And so then I remember as soon as Alexis sent around the links, just figuring out, okay, like, what am I going to do? When am I going to do it? Here, email, like, done. I want in, I want all in.
And you went all in because you did the mentor coaching experience after you went through CTI.
Mhm.
That was kind of in between because
Yeah.
there were several months between the September and now the January CPAC. Tell me about that, like going through the mentor coaching, because you'd gotten the tools from CTI, you decided to go through the group coaching, and then there's 3 hours of individual coaching. What was that like for you?
Yeah, so I was a little intimidated, I'll be honest, because I know that a lot of people do that either during CPAC or sometimes after CPAC. But to me, it was really important that I keep up in between because I knew I was going to have this gap of time. And I was so excited about everything I'd learned. And I was starting to work with a couple clients pro bono. And I wanted advice on that I knew I wouldn't get otherwise until January. And I also knew how much I loved it and I didn't want to be without it for so long too. And I just felt so much momentum. And I think in a lot of ways, it actually will set me up for CPAC in a different way. And that I'll get to go into it, with even more knowledge and feeling more comfortable. I think that the sessions were tremendous. It was so great to learn from people who are at all different stages, many of them, very advanced. And we had one woman in our class who had, started that whole group coaching programs, overnight. I mean, it was really inspiring. And I think ultimately made me that much more excited for CPAC.
Yeah, the group, there's just a synergy when you're in a group with other people going in the same direction. There's a lot of learning that happens in group coaching that I think I know when I first started coaching, I think, well, a group that's, I'm not getting the same individual attention. But when you're in the group, you realize, one, there's an energy from other people that is very valuable that you don't get alone or just one-on-one with a coach. And so there's a different kind of value that comes from that versus doing the individual, but then there's a value in the individual. So they're very different, but not necessarily one better than the other.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like I learned just as much from whether it was the sessions or our one-on-ones or the group. I mean, having the chat there too, people would just drop gems in there and it was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's what what really made me just want to interview you. So I happen to be your mentor coach for your individual sessions. That's not always the case. It just needs to be a PCC in the mentor coaching experience, which I am. And you have the option where we can review a recorded session of yours, or you can live coach your coach. And then we review how that coaching went. And you chose to do that twice, which I know when you're coaching your coach that's coaching you, that can be a little bit nerve-wracking, but you didn't seem that way at all. You have a confidence and a way of kind of getting at the kind of the center of things. And I found that very intriguing. So you took a lot of what you learned in CTI and you've applied it almost immediately, and you've been coaching people during these months before CPAC. Tell me a little bit about that confidence and how you are able to implement what you learned in CTI and in MCE within just a few months.
Yeah, well, I think there's two things. One, I have a personal saying that I love. I don't know who the quote is ultimately attributable to, but feel the fear and do it anyway. And I think we can get so in our heads about things. And sometimes if we just dive in and do it, we find it's not that bad. And actually, we're way more capable than we ever imagined. And then, as you know, and has sort of become a little bit of a joke, I say to myself, what would Valerie do? And I channel that, and I mean it in the most sincere way because, it can be intimidating with one of my clients, with when I coached you for sure. And you don't know what someone's going to throw at you, but you have to remember that you're not there to be the expert in every single thing in life. You're there to help them, and you can help them no matter what your background is.
You know, it's so funny. The first time you said that during our coaching group, I just had to laugh and I was a little embarrassed, but you know, it actually, I had not said it that way, but I did the same thing. When I started coaching, my first training was with a coach named Thomas Leonard. And Thomas Leonard was considered really the founder of modern life coaching. I mean, he started the first coach training program. He was one of the co-founders of the ICF. And I went through training with him less than a year before he passed very suddenly and very young. Actually, he was the age I am now when he passed. But he was amazing at coaching. And I remember in that training, he was doing all this laser coaching just on the spot. And I'm not even sure if he explained what he was doing every single time. He was a very good teacher, but the best part of the teaching was watching him coach. And so there were many times when, especially in the first couple of years I started coaching, I kind of had Thomas in my head, or I felt like Thomas was on my shoulder going, ask this, don't say anything right now. Yeah, lean in a little bit, say, you know, it was just like, it was very helpful to me. And, you know, we actually can get a great deal of confidence when we think about what good coaching looks like and we act as if. There's actually research around this whole acting as if we are what we're hoping to be. And that's really what I hear you doing. But the other thing I hear is, you know, sometimes our backgrounds, we don't connect the dots, right? So for me, one day, probably 5-6 years ago, it occurred to me, everything I've ever done professionally, like after I was out of school, not my McDonald's and Dairy Queen jobs, but you know, after I was professional, actually was all connected. I was a marketing assistant, then I was a marketing director. I had a public relations firm. I've been an author, a professional speaker, a coach, a television host. I think of all those things and I realize, oh, it was all communication. All of it really was about me getting to the essence of what helps to move something forward. Even when I was in public relations, my business card said public relations strategist. And now I often call myself a life strategist. That's really what I do. For you, at this point, you are in development for a nonprofit, but your background, your training is as a lawyer. And what do lawyers do but have to be able to ask those questions and get to the core of issues? How do you think that may have impacted?
Yeah, you know, and it's interesting because I hadn't really thought about it that way until you said that. And when I think about it, you know, as a lawyer, there's different philosophies that at least in my training, you know, I was given, and one is a guide, and you're there to help your client and guide them. And I took, actually in my third year, the mediation clinic. And so I would practice at small claims court at night in the Bronx. And it was ultimately boiled down to people wanting to be heard and express themselves and finding those connections and where people weren't that far apart. And I think it's the same thing. And I've taken that also into my practice and approach to development. It's all, to me, relationship building and finding what people want, and then how you can tie that in and make it something larger. And so I think that really goes to coaching and just unpacking what is that essence, where is someone trying to go, and now, okay, what are the paths that maybe even exist, or if they don't exist, where can we make them?
That is so good. I love what you said about, you know, in mediation, people just really wanted to be heard, which this is one of the very first things we say on the first day of CTI, is that very few people have the experience of feeling completely heard.
Mm-hmm.
We live in a very noisy world. I think often in relationships, there's not listening so much as there is talking and trying to be heard.
Yeah.
And so when you were doing mediation, what happened when you got opposing people to the point where both sides felt heard?
Often they would find that the issue sort of started to melt away. It was, I mean, look, and this was not every case. There were some cases that, I won't go into, but we didn't get there, and we were never going to get there.
Yeah, yeah.
But when people felt heard, they would come together in a really beautiful way. And, usually it was, I don't want to trivialize, but a very, very small thing that had begun it. And that not being heard or not feeling like they were heard had just exploded it into something that felt insurmountable.
That is so good. And so in coaching, that same kind of breakthrough can happen when
Yeah.
people feel heard. Such a big part of our job as coaches is simply making sure they feel heard and making sure we're listening in a way that we're getting what it is they're trying to say. Because when you get that and you get at the truth, all of a sudden answers become more obvious and apparent. So there you are. You had some background that really lent itself to helping you in this journey. So I am curious, what was kind of the thing that made you say, yes, I'm ready for CPEC? And well, I'll ask my second question if there, what made you go ahead and go, yep, I'm doing this?
I think really just how much I loved CTI, and it was, I feel like I sound like a commercial, but it was everything I hoped it would be. And I felt really ready. And I think part of this year, I'm sure I'm not alone in this, has been really in honing in on what are those things that are most important to me. What do I want to do? We only have a limited time on this earth. Where do I feel most in flow and in service of others? And that's what I want to do.
Yeah. So I imagine the fact that you're not a practicing lawyer and you're in a nonprofit has to do with you having wanted to make a certain type of impact. Am I on track?
I think that would be accurate.
Yeah, so many of our coaches have sense of purpose, spirituality and sense of purpose as a top strength. This whole idea that I'm here for a reason, like you said, we're only here for a certain amount of time and making that impact. So it seems like throughout your career, even going to the mediation clinic, going into this nonprofit development, and now as a coach, it seems like you've been all along the way looking for what is this thing and where are my people? I know that feeling when I first went to coach training, I was like, there are other people like me.
Yeah, seriously, it was like kind of, I mean, we weren't together because it's 2020, but like in that Zoom, I'm like looking, scrolling, I'm like, where have you all been? You've all been hiding out, but you're here.
That's really, really awesome. So what are you most looking forward to about the 6-month
Ooh.
CPEC program?
I'm really excited to go deeper into coach training, just learning more about asking questions, working with people. I'm super excited about the positive psychology section. I love positive psychology. I'm a little bit of a nerd on that. Listen to podcasts about it. And also just getting to meet and learn from my peers in this group. I think to me, that was one of the hardest things about the end of CTI is you've just gotten, and it's crazy. I realize it sounds crazy because we didn't even meet in person, but you feel like you know these people so well, especially the ones who are in your small group, and you've been coaching each other and really vulnerable. And then it's like, well, don't go away. You're like you're my buddy in this. So I'm really excited to have, a whole new cohort of people and learn from them and, just get to connect.
That is so good. Well, I'm so excited about you um, not only graduating from CTI and finishing up the mentor coaching experience, but heading into certification. And I just wanted to share your story because I think so many people can connect the dots, even if they're not in law or not in nonprofit, that whole idea of being able to use your past experiences in coaching and also, again, how quickly you were able to apply the skills of CTI and your enthusiasm. I mean, it's just really, it really shines through, and I'm excited about what's going to happen over the next 6 months as you go through CPAC. I hope you will keep me updated.
I definitely will. And thank you. I really appreciate. I hope this is helpful to people. And just thank you for your time. It's been great.
What would you say to somebody that's on the fence? Like they've been through CTI. Some of them just went through in the last few months. Some went through 4 or 5 years ago, because we have people that will wait. What would you say to somebody who's on the fence about starting in just a week or so?
I'd say if you think you want to do it and you can make it work, look, I know everyone has a lot of different challenges right now, so maybe it's not the right time, but I would say it's worth it to give yourself that opportunity if you can and if you feel like it's right. That sort of was also a big part of my approach to it was, this is something I can do for me and that I'm excited about. And if I'm excited, that's only going to make me better at it. I think the same way that, we tell our clients sometimes this coaching time isn't selfish. It's for you to get yourself where you need to be. I sort of view this the same way. And if I have a goal, then why would I not do everything I can to work towards it?
Yeah. Something you point to is the happiness trigger of anticipation, like having something to look forward to. My coach training made me happier. When I was going, oh, good, I have class today. It was something to look forward to, because you're right. When you're really excited about something, there's an energy, that positive emotion, all of that. It's in that 6-month period, it's going to be, you're going to see some transformations happen even in your own life that you were not expecting. And a part of it is just you're already enthusiastic, but you're kind of in an incubator, a couple times a week and meeting with your cohort. So I'm really, really excited. Thank you for taking the time to chat with me.
Thank you. Thank you so much.